Hey, shalom, shalom, Israel. I'd like to read a verse to you from the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 8. Do not let this book of the Torah depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you guard to do according to all that is written in it. For then you shall make your way prosperous and act wisely. This principle in the book of Joshua talks about speaking the word, thinking upon it, or meditating, and doing it. For when we do that, it tells us, for then you shall make your way prosperous and act wisely. Well, I like to start a little series on healing scriptures, and that principle in Joshua is really good. So as you're hearing these being read, or you can look these scriptures up yourself, you can speak them, you can meditate on them, and when you do them, then you get the benefit when you actually enter in and actually do them. The first scripture I'd like to look at is a famous one. It's in the book of Exodus chapter 15 verse 26. I'm going to read it and give a little bit of context and how it maybe even applies to our day at the end of the age here. It is written, again, this is Exodus 15:26. And he said, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, and do what is right in his eyes, and shall listen to his commands, and shall guard all his laws, I shall bring on you none of the diseases I brought on the Mitzrites or the Egyptians, for I am Yahuwah who heals you, or Yahuwah Rapha in Hebrew, which means Yahuwah our doctor, Yahuwah our physician, Yahuwah our restorer, Yahuwah who heals us. So this gives a lot of insight into the character of Yah, and as we go through the scriptures, we're going to find out that Yah, Elohim, is good, and he wants to restore us, he wants to heal us. And there's a backstory to this. I want to lay it out a little bit. So going back to the beginning of chapter 15, the Israelites had just, at the end of 14, crossed the Red Sea. They were victorious over the Egyptians. Yah had split the Red Sea. The Israelites went across, and at the break of day, the waters came back, and the Egyptians were no more. It's almost like they're being birthed. There was no going back. Just like a mother who gives birth to a child, that child is not going back where it came from. Israel is safe from their enemies, and at the beginning of chapter 15, they are rejoicing. They're singing the song of Moses, and they're singing basically to Yahuwah. And in verse 1 it says, a little bit further in the middle of the verse, it says, I sing to Yahuwah, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has thrown in the sea. So basically they're just rejoicing, almost kind of like throwing a party this day just in what Yah has done. However, being a free people doesn't mean you automatically know everything once you're free. Just kind of like a newborn child, there's a lot of things you're going to have to learn. So we pick up in the story after they're rejoicing everything in verse 22, where it says, Moshe brought the children, brought Israel from the Sea of Reeds, or Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Ashur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And they came to Marah, and they were unable to drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. So the name of it was called Marah. And the people grumbled against Moshe, saying, what are we to drink? And then he cried out to Yahuwah, and Yahuwah showed him a tree. And when he threw it in the waters were made sweet. And there he made a law and a right ruling for them. And there he tried them. So that's the context of that verse 26. They had just come out. They go to Marah. Of course, they're traveling, and they're not finding water. And when they do find water, it's bitter. It's interesting because Miriam's name means bitter. Marah means bitter, and the waters are bitter, and the people are bitter. They're grumbling. And it says that Yah tried them, test them. And this is a really important principle. We're going to come back to it in a little bit. But the fact is, how do we respond when we don't get the things we want in the time that we want. Remember, there was approximately anywhere from 2 to 4 million people that came out of this Exodus, not including their animals. So it's estimated they would need daily almost 10 million gallons of water. So there is a real concern. However, they should have just asked Moses. Instead of it says specifically the people grumbled against Moses. And really they were grumbling against Yah. What are we to drink? And this is interesting because in this instruction, Yah shows him a tree and tells him to throw it in the water, because this kind of doesn't somewhat make sense, because the waters are bitter. We have this tree that's typically normally bitter, a bitter and a bitter, and it makes the water sweet. And there's a lot of, sod level teaching on this, like the tree, what the tree represents. The tree of life. Obviously, we can think of Yahushua Messiah on the stake, that he partook of that bitter cup, so that we could actually have life and have life to the fullest. So, and we'll be talking about this more later, but when things don't go our way, are we going to respond with bitterness if we don't get the things we need? So in this way, Yah was really seeing how they would respond. Later on, he tells us that he brought them in the wilderness to see what would be in their heart, to test them if they would obey his voice or not. It tells us also that, it says later on in Deuteronomy, the man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yah. And that's really their second test with food. But right now we're looking at water. And Yahushua Messiah, through that stake, he can actually set us free from our bitterness or whatever we're going through. And he can actually change our situation around to where we can have living water or even sweet water. But that sets up the context for this verse 26. And specifically says he gave them a law, which means hok in Hebrew. And this is a decree, a law. And sometimes it's a law we don't understand. How do we respond to laws we don't understand? Especially throwing a bitter tree in the water. That does almost make sense. But there's a lot of laws sometimes we don't understand. Like children, we don't get it. But the Father, again, do we trust him? Do we really trust him in what he's doing, that he's a good Elohim? And then it says, again in that verse 20, he made a law and a right ruling for them. Mitzpah is a word for right ruling or a judgment. This is a little bit different than a law. A law can tell you, this is what you would need to do, but a mitzpah, a judgment, is like, okay, now if you violate that law, this is going to happen or this is going to happen. So, and it says, and there he tried them. So when we come out, and this is a very good practical thing for even the second Exodus. Even though if we're set free, it doesn't mean that we're going to automatically respond properly if we have to go through some tough things. In that trying, in that proving, in that testing, Yah is going to see what's in our heart. Are we going to listen to him or not? So right after that, it goes right to verse 26. And he said, now this is the law and the judgment. This is pretty positive. This is before Mount Sinai, by the way. If you diligently obey, and this is kind of tied with that word Shema, to hear with the intent to obey, the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, and do what is right in his eyes, and shall listen or give ear to his commands. That's mitzvah, a little bit different word than mitzvah. Mitzvah is the judgment. Mitzvah is commandments. And shall guard all his laws. That's Hokmah, even the ones you don't understand. I shall bring on you none of the diseases I brought on the Mitzrites or the Egyptians. That you're not going to go through the things they went through. For I am Yahuwah who heals you. So we see the law or the decree. Then we see the judgment. In this case, is pretty positive. Later on, he's going to get more detailed, like if you violate my covenant or my words, this can happen to you. But this basically says, if you, hearken to my word, you basically do it, then none of those diseases are going to come upon you. But also, the very nature of Yah is Yahuwah Rapha. He's our healer. He's our restorer. He's our doctor. He's our physician. Furthermore, right after this, the final verse in this chapter says, and they came to Alim, where they where there were 12 fountains of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters. So basically, there was this place, this oasis that he knew they were going to go to. He knew he was going to take them there, but first he wanted to try to see if they were going to obey or not. And this bitterness issue is huge, because a lot of us, when we don't get the things we want when we want them, our attitude, we get bitter and go, "Yeah, what have you done for me lately?" And this is the same thing happens in their second test when they are not getting maybe the diet they had back in Egypt. They're basically comparing Pharaoh to Yah and saying, "Yah, what are you going to give us?" And a lot of people have a relationship with Yah like this, where what's next? What are you going to do for me? Instead of having a relationship with Him. And this is really huge when we prepare for the second Exodus, that Yah is going to take us in the wilderness and see what's in our heart. Do we really want to have that relationship with Him? We really love Him with all our heart, with all our being, with all our might? Or are we just trying to see what we can get from Him? So this verse 26 is huge in showing the character and the nature of Yah, that He is YAHUAH RAPHA. He is YAHUAH our healer. Shalom.